Good evening. You made it back inside tonight. Good. Close the door behind you. Lock it if you'd like. Though I'll be honest with you, locks don't do much against the kind of thing I'm going to tell you about tonight. This is a story about a man named Daniel Marsh, 31 years old, lived in a small rented house on the edge of a town called Grover's Mill. Real place, unremarkable. The kind of town that sits between two larger ones and gets forgotten by both. He was a trail runner, had been for 6 years. Woke at 5 in the morning 3 days a week, drove 20 minutes to the Aldrich State Forest, and ran until the dark burned off and the trees came back into color. He was good at it, fast. The kind of runner who never needed music, who found the silence of the forest easier than most people found conversation. He was also, and this matters, a man who did not believe in things that couldn't be measured. Which is why what happened to him is the kind of story that stays with you. Not because it's impossible, but because it happened to exactly the kind of person who should have been safe from it. Part 1. The First Morning. It was a Tuesday in late September when Daniel first noticed it. He was 4 miles into his usual loop, the one that curved north through the old-growth section of Aldrich, where the pines were tall enough to block out the sky, and the trail narrowed to a single track barely wider than his shoulders. He'd run this loop over 200 times. He knew every route, every bend, every place where the trail dropped away into the creek gully on the left. He knew exactly what the forest sounded like at 5:45 in the morning. Which is why he noticed when it changed. It was subtle at first, just a shift in the texture of the silence. The birds that usually sang in the pine canopy had gone quiet, not gradually the way birds go quiet when a cloud passes, but all at once, like something had pressed a hand over every sound in the forest simultaneously. Daniel slowed to a jog, then a walk. He stood still on the trail and listened. Nothing. Not wind, not water, not a single bird or insect, or the rustle of something small moving through the undergrowth. Just the forest holding its breath. He told himself it was a deer, a fox, something large enough to silence the smaller things. He picked his pace back up and finished his loop and drove home and made coffee and forgot about it entirely by 9 o'clock. That was his first mistake. Part 2. The shape between the trees. He went back on Thursday. Same trail, same time. The sky was still dark when he parked. The kind of deep blue-black that exists for about 20 minutes before dawn, when the world looks less like a place and more like a suggestion of one. He was 1 mile in when he felt it. Not saw, not heard. Felt. The particular sensation of being watched. And I think you know what I mean, because every human being alive has felt it at least once. That prickling awareness at the back of the neck, that certainty arriving without evidence, that something nearby is orienting itself toward you. Daniel stopped running. He turned around slowly. The trail behind him was empty. The pines rose on either side, dark and close, their lowest branches at eye level, their trunks disappearing into shadow 10 feet back from the path. He stared into that shadow for a long time, long enough that his breathing slowed, long enough that the sweat on his arms went cold in the October air. Nothing. He turned back around and kept running. He was half a mile further on, moving fast now, pushing his pace the way you do when your body decides it wants to be somewhere else before your mind has caught up. When he heard it. Footsteps, behind him, on the trail. A steady rhythm, unhurried, maybe 30 feet back. Not running, walking, keeping pace with him the way a shadow keeps pace. not matching his speed exactly, but never falling further behind. He spun around. The trail was empty, but the birds had gone quiet again, and in the silence, in the absolute windless hush of the Aldrich Forest at 5:50 in the morning, he heard something else. Faint, almost imagined. The soft sound of something very large settling its weight, just out of sight, just past the reach of the light. Daniel Marsh ran the last 3 miles back to his car without stopping. Part 3. What he found at home. He didn't go back to the forest on Saturday. He told himself he needed a rest day. He went for a run in his neighborhood instead. Sidewalks, streetlights, the sounds of early morning traffic 2 streets over. Normal. Safe. He ran 5 miles and felt fine, and came home and stood at the kitchen sink, running cold water over his wrists, the way he always did after a long effort. He looked up, out the window above the sink, which faced the backyard, and saw the tree line. His house backed up to a thin strip of municipal woodland. Nothing dramatic. 20, 30 trees deep, mostly oak and birch. The kind of scrubby secondary growth that fills in wherever humans stop paying attention for a decade or 2. He'd never thought much about it. He could see the houses on the next street through the gaps in the trees on a clear day. But that morning, standing at his sink, water running cold over his hands, he looked at those trees and felt his stomach drop. Something was standing at the edge of them. It was tall, taller than it should have been. Not grotesquely so, not impossibly so, but wrong in the way that your brain registers wrongness before your eyes can articulate it. Like a man who was exactly 1 size too large, standing completely still at the tree line, half in shadow, facing the house, facing him. Daniel turned off the tap. He did not move. He stood at the kitchen window and stared at the thing at the edge of his tree line for what felt like a very long time. And the thing stood at the edge of his tree line and did not move either. And the whole world seemed to narrow down to that window and that yard and that stillness between them. Then his phone buzzed on the counter, a calendar reminder, something ordinary, completely meaningless, and he looked down at it for 1 second. When he looked back up, the tree line was empty. Part 4. The research. Daniel was not the kind of man who believed in hauntings or folklore or things that followed you out of forests. But he was methodical. He was a problem solver, and he had now seen, or thought he had seen, something he could not explain, twice in 1 week. So he did what a methodical person does. He researched. He started with the Aldrich State Forest itself. There wasn't much. A few hiking forums, a trail database, the State Forestry Commission's maintenance logs. He searched for incident reports, for anything that might suggest the forest had a history of, he wasn't sure how to phrase it, even to himself, unusual encounters. He found one thing, a post on a regional hiking forum dated 4 years earlier. A woman named Carrie G., no last name, who had been hiking the North Loop of Aldrich with her husband in October, the same month, the same section of trail where Daniel had heard the footsteps. She had written in a post that had exactly 3 replies before the thread died. Has anyone else experienced the birds going completely silent in the north section? We stopped and listened for a while, and then my husband thought he heard something behind us on the trail, but when we turned around, there was nothing there. Probably a deer, but it felt wrong in a way I can't describe. We cut the hike short. I don't think I want to go back. Daniel read that paragraph 3 times, the birds going completely silent. He heard something behind us on the trail. It felt wrong in a way I can't describe. He closed his laptop and sat in the dark of his kitchen for a long time. Part 5. The Last Run. He went back on the following Tuesday, and I want you to understand something. He knew, going back, that it was probably not wise. He knew. But there is something about being a person who runs that goes beyond the physical. The trail was his. He had run it 200 times. He was not willing, he told himself, to surrender it to something he couldn't explain. He parked at 5:30, earlier than usual. The sky was fully black, no blue in it yet, and he wore a headlamp and kept his phone charged and told himself he would simply run and finish and prove to himself that there was nothing in the Aldrich Forest except trees and silence and his own overworked imagination. For 3 miles, he was right. The trail was quiet, not unnaturally quiet. The birds were there, rustling in the canopy, a woodpecker somewhere to the east, the sound of the creek rising up from the gully. Normal. His breathing steadied. His pace found its rhythm. By the time he reached the north section, the old growth, the narrow track, the tall pines, he had almost convinced himself. Then the birds stopped, all at once, exactly like before. The sound cut off, like something had reached into the forest and cupped its hands around every living thing and squeezed. Daniel stopped running. He stood on the trail and turned around slowly. It was there. Not on the trail, beside it. Standing between 2 pines, maybe 15 feet into the trees, where his headlamp beam thinned and the dark pooled between the trunks. He could see it clearly enough to know that his mind was not playing tricks. Tall, still, the shape of something that had learned to hold itself upright, but hadn't quite perfected the proportions. Its head, if it was a head, was slightly too large. Its arms, if they were arms, hung a fraction too low. It was watching him. And then it did something that Daniel Marsh would spend years trying to forget. It tilted its head, slowly, just a few degrees to the left, the way a dog tilts its head when it hears a sound it's trying to understand. Curious, patient, like it had been watching him for a very long time and had only now decided to let him know. Daniel ran. He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. He did not look back, not once, not for a single second, because something in his body understood at a level below thought that looking back was the thing you must not do. He ran the 1.5 miles back to the trailhead without stopping, without slowing, barely breathing, his headlamp jerking wildly with each stride, the trees rushing past him on either side. He got in his car, locked the doors, drove home. He never ran the Aldrich Forest again. Part 6. What followed? Here is the part of Daniel's story that he doesn't tell people. Not his friends, not his therapist. The one he started seeing in November, who was kind and rational and very good at helping him understand that isolated incidents in dark forests can produce powerful fear responses that the brain subsequently misremembers and distorts. He doesn't tell them about the tree line, because it wasn't just that one Saturday morning in October. It was after that too. Not every day, not even most days, but sometimes, in the early morning or just after dusk, when he happened to look out the window above the kitchen sink, he would see the shape at the edge of those 20, 30 scrubby municipal trees, standing still, facing the house. Always the same distance from the tree line, right at the border of dark and light, never stepping out of the shadow, never closer than it had been the first time, just watching. He moved out of that house in February. He's in an apartment now, 3rd floor, city building, no backyard, no tree line, no woods within 2 miles in any direction. He sleeps better. He runs on a treadmill or in the park along the river where the trees are ornamental and thin and spaced 20 feet apart with clear sightlines in every direction. He's fine. He'll tell you he's fine. but he never looks out windows that face trees after dark. And he never, under any circumstances, not on a dare, not for any reason, runs trails alone. There are things in the old places of the world that have been there far longer than we have. They were in the forests before the trails were cut, before the towns were built at the forest's edge, before we started moving through their territory at 5 in the morning with headlamps and running shoes, announcing ourselves with every footfall. Most of them don't care about us, but some of them, just some, are curious. And curiosity, in a thing that old, in a thing that patient, doesn't go away when you do. I'm the keeper, and these are dimly lit tales. If tonight's story found its way to you, leave a like so the lantern knows you are here, and subscribe so the next tale finds you too. Until then, sleep well, if you can.